Yo guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing another mixing tutorial, but this time on a more singy voice from my boy Holmes Music. It's at holmesofficial_. Follow him on Instagram. He just dropped an album which I mixed a ton of songs for, and one of the songs, Up and Down, is featuring me, so if you want to go check that out, definitely do. So this is what it sounds like unmixed.
I know that you're tired of being alone, but you know that I'm always here for you. But you don't even look my way. Tried a couple hundred times.
It's a super duper fire song. I love it so much, and it's honestly probably one of my favorites that he's ever made, so I really enjoyed mixing this one. So I'm just going to be going over the vocal chain and what each thing does and how it benefits the vocal. It's super duper simple, and this won't be a very long video, so I hope you guys learned something. So the first thing I always have on his vocal chain is just all of these macro knobs over here, which this is a vocal chain in Ableton. If you're in like a different DAW, it's obviously going to be different, but this is what I use. So all of these settings: low cut, de-esser location, de-esser strength, multiband, compressor, round EQ, compressor, reverb and sparkle, and delay. All these things are just really minor things. Well, sometimes they're not minor, but things you want to have when you mix every vocal. So low cut, you want to get rid of those muddy frequencies. De-esser, obviously, to get rid of that harsh S sound. Multiband compressor, regular compressor, just a round EQ to give the vocal more body. And then reverb and delay, obviously. So the first thing we have in this vocal chain is an Auto-Tune Pro. Set the key of the song, and then retune speed and humanize are really the only things we're going to be worried about. So Colton, I know he likes his vocals more natural sounding, less auto-tune, robotic sounding, so that's why the retune speed is a little bit higher at 23 than like a normal vocal that I mix. So if it was somebody who wanted their vocals sounding more auto-tuney and more like robotic, I'd just turn that retune speed up more. But for Colton, since he likes it more natural, I'm going to turn that retune speed at about 23. And then this humanize knob also ties into the natural feeling. So if somebody wants it super robotic, I wouldn't have any humanize. But since this vocal has to sound more natural, then I turn the humanize up to almost 50, not quite 50, but about 43. So that's just the auto tune. That goes on most vocals, obviously. The next thing we have in the chain is a multiband compressor, which I use this macro knob right over here to control, and then an EQ, just cutting out the first lows of the vocal and then boosting a little bit of highs and taking out a little bit of those mid-high frequencies. You'll see throughout this whole tutorial that I cut out the lows a lot, and you want to have so many EQs in your vocal chain because every single plugin that you put in your vocal is going to give the vocal a different frequency that we might not want, so then we're going to have to use another EQ to cut it out. So that's the first thing. After that compressor, I use an EQ to cut out those frequencies. Then next I have another compressor, and this is called Rough Rider 3. It's a free plugin, I believe, and it's super fire for giving the vocal body. So the preset that I use is just a bit off the top, and the only thing that I changed is this mix knob at 75%. Instead of at 100, I just turn it down a quarter of the way. So this preset is very good for giving the vocal body and a lot of strength behind it. So you can hear the difference of what it sounds like without Rough Rider.
Know that you're tired of being alone.
I mean, it's full, but it's still kind of thin. So when we enable this plugin, then we get a lot of that body back.
Know that you're tired of being alone.
And to me, it just sounds so much more full. So after that, we have another EQ cutting out those lows from the compressor. The next thing we have is another compressor. This is for the de-esser, which I modified in the macro knobs. And then this EQ is also for the de-esser. It's for more of the de-esser strength. And then the multiband dynamics, which is this macro knob over here. Those are to cut out the harsh S, oh my gosh, I cannot say that, harsh S frequencies in every vocal. I mean, there's going to be multiples, like some compressors are good for like P's and D's and like vocals that have, or consonants for the vocal that have a lot of like oomph behind them, kind of. And then de-essers are for like the S's and like E's and harsh frequencies. that we don't want in the vocal. And then the next thing that I added after the de-esser was another EQ to complement the de-esser. So in FabFilter Pro Q3, we can just go up to the dynamic and vocals and enable this vocal lead 3 preset. This is one of my favorite presets I use on my vocals because it cuts out the lows, boosts a little bit of those highs, but then also takes out those mid highs that we don't really like that have to do with the S's and all those harsh consonants that we don't like. The next thing in the vocal chain is the reverb, delay, and then a little bit of saturation here in the middle. I don't really mess with a lot of the reverb and delay on this main vocal chain, to be honest, just about 30 reverb and then 33% delay, because I track my reverb and delays through different buses and I add them back, which you'll see a little bit later. And then we also have this towel reverb, just giving it a little bit more of a reverb feel with the Airy Monoplate preset, and I didn't change anything at all on that. Once again, another EQ, just cutting out the lows because we want to take those muddy low frequencies out of the reverb. Otherwise, it's going to drown the vocal in gross low frequencies that we don't want. And then the last thing is I just use this compressor, turning the threshold down to the same amount as the output knob because we want all of the vocals to sound the same and flattened and not one sound being higher than the other sound necessarily, like one word or one section being louder than another. So that's basically it for this main vocal chain. And then I added, like I said earlier, a separate reverb bus to the vocal. So I always use the same reverbs for Colton's voice every time because I just found this perfect spot that sounds good on every single song he sends me. So the main reverb that I have is FabFilter Pro R. It's Vocal Gold Room, and I turned the mix down to about 78% because I didn't want necessarily too much reverb, but I wanted that reverb feel. And then just a low cut after that to cut out the low frequencies of that reverb. And every single time I turn the bus down on Ableton to negative 22.5 because I know that fits his voice. And a lot of this stuff is just kind of your own preference for your voice. So you are going to have a different voice than Colton, obviously. So you might want your reverb bus to be higher or lower depending on the sound that you want. Just kind of mess around with it until you find what you like the best. But I found for his voice that it's about negative 22.5 dB. And if you're in a different DAW, these buses will be in different sections, but you'll know obviously where they are. I'm using Ableton, so things are going to be different. Unless you use Ableton, then this is how you turn up the reverb bus over here, because I have these other two buses that aren't really doing anything for the vocal, and then I added my own reverb, which is C, so it's a third one over right here. The other thing that sometimes when I mix Colton's ad-libs, I just mix them a little teeny bit different, so I just have this like little stutter effect right here. So I literally mixed it, in this case, exactly the same as the main vocal, but I turned up the reverb a little bit to negative 12.8. It's going through the same reverb bus as the normal vocal. And then I turned it down a little bit because I really wanted like a stutter effect, which sounds like this.
Trying not to fall, trying not to fall.
So I wanted it a little bit quieter because I didn't want it to like pop out of nowhere, kind of. So these vocals are really simple to mix. I loved mixing them because, once again, this song is so good. So this is what the final mix sounds like.
I know that you're tired of being alone, but you know that I'm always here for you. But you don't even look my way. Tried a couple hundred times.
So it's super crisp and has a lot of body behind it and just sounds super nice. Once again, here's a reminder of what it sounded like when we started.
Know that you're tired of being alone.
And after.
But you know that I'm always here for you.
Super, super clean. I love it so much. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you learned something from it. And please let me know like what else you guys want me to do, what kind of tutorials, beat tutorials, more mixing tutorials, anything like that. Just drop it in the description or drop it in the comments and I'll take a look at those and do as much as I can. So once again, thank you guys so much for watching and I hope you have a great day.